in today's episode.
It doesn't matter how much evidence she brought to the bank or the police, nothing is being done to fix her life. I see all this transfers on Cash App and Venmo, and I need to persuade them and explain to them that there is fraud happening in my card that they did not catch. This lack of accountability of companies. Come on, let's help people live better and be happy. It's fun to kind of sometimes in all this chaos, remembering why we're doing something. Marketer that comes over to the door and sell her this, which obviously a fraudulent business. Halo effect is actually you giving positive attributes to somebody that didn't do yet anything to deserve them. Every time that people say AI, it's kind of like a magic buzzword. I really want to create is a place where just civilians can contact and present evidence of issues that happen to them. I joined the payments consulting network and the merchant advisory because it is challenging when you just go on your own. I need to learn how to do that. I would recommend to kind of think of why you were doing that.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today for a new episode of the podcast A Journey into Fraud Prevention. I'm your host Ivan Prokofiev. New episode and new exciting guest. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate the episode on any platforms such as Apple, Spotify or YouTube. And share the podcast to your network. It means a lot to me and allows me to invite more and more new guests. And most important, enjoy. Let's begin. POYEHALI. Hi Elena, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Ivan. How are you today?
I'm very good and I'm happy that you joined me today. Thank you for
Thank you.
accepting my invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy to be here and meeting you finally. We had this correspondence for a while, so that's fun.
It's
Thank you for
cool.
inviting me.
I just want to start with simple questions. Could you briefly introduce yourself for people who don't know you?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Elena Michaeli. I'm passionate about solving risk and product challenges with a focus on the finest customer experience, business needs, and meaningful partnerships, mainly to promote tailored solutions that impacting the business growth. I have over a decade experience in risk, fraud, and cyber intelligence, mainly in the B2B, B2C, and P2P platforms. I'm also very involved in education and sharing knowledge, and it is reflected in my involvement with the MRC, PCN, and even Udemy, kind of underscoring my dedication to fortifying the digital landscape. And I'm really happy to also, being here, talking with you in this episode and kind of sharing a little bit of my professional journey and how it's built on the foundation of innovative fraud and risk solutions and a relentless pursuit of global trust and safety enhancement in the ongoing battle against cybercrime.
Sounds amazing. Very looking forward to hear all your stories, and I'm so impressed that you know so many abbreviations. It's a nightmare for me. You know so many. You mentioned a lot of them, but it's great. I really like it.
I also forget many of them many times. I get blackouts as well.
It's so much abbreviation nowadays, but it's fine. So I'm going to start with a very simple question. Since you have over decades in risk, fraud prevention, cybersecurity, fraud prevention or cybersecurity, what is this?
Well, that's a great question. And if I really summarize it in a very short manner, it's really just helping people live better, preventing all this headache that costs people losing so much. I've recently took an Uber. Well, actually, it was Lyft. Never mind. We're not promoting. My driver, her name was Nicole, is Nicole. And she shared with me such a crazy situation where her ex stole her identity, left her with debt, killed her credit score, which the credit score here in the US works really, really different than how it is in Europe. And she's working to cover this debt for over 20 years already, and she cannot afford anything else. it doesn't matter how much evidence she brought to the bank or the police. Nothing is being done to fix her life that she didn't cause anything for it. So obviously, us as experts in the industry, I feel like we have, you know, something we can do about that, which I will also share with you that it's also something I'm working on with a few experts. But going back to the fraud prevention, what kind of kept me kind of like pushing me to do what we do is help people to not get to that situation, you know?
Yeah, I got your point. Thank you for sharing this story. As a follow-up question, let me bring as example. How the probably it's a lot of studies everywhere how the child learns something. For example, if it's hot, before they touch, understand it's hot, then stop to caring about this one. However, do you believe the approach for the society to say if people start to facing with this kind of emergency things on their account, for example, if the bank started from tomorrow, start to create test, I know, payments, which is not real, but for the customers to give them attention that something went wrong with their card, will it increase security of entire population, or people going to be more scared to stop using banks in that case?
Well,
Even
it's a good question. It kind of depends on. Sorry, you wanted to say something?
I just want to, like, as example that you brought with the taxi driver from Luft. I understand it's crazy examples that just someone stolen your identity and credit score, etc., etc. But let's say if it's before that case, someone tried to get access to your, I don't know, bank account. Do you believe it's gonna help her to add extra protection for her identity, or it's gonna be exactly the same case? It's gonna be end up the same.
I think that a lot of the possibilities that are allowed today and are legal, those are causing the identity theft. There is an extreme lack of awareness of those. And then also because by the law, generally, many businesses should they are not legally obliged to take any actions to give refunds on fraud. I mean, there are different regulations, they have different policies, they find ways to decide what they will refund, what they will not. There is also this difference between debit card and credit card, and kind of like the insurance that customers receive on those, which also kind of ridiculous because if you have a bank account in Chase, so you have a debit card and a credit card, which technically they look completely the same, right? You can scan both of them, but the insurance that you have on both of them would be very, very different. And also, if you have the same type of fraud on each of the cards, you're not going to receive even the same treatment. Like you would have more chances to get refund on fraud that happened due to even account takeover, and not really your fault, and just normal use, even if it's in a gas station. I know that we say a lot people to, hey, don't use your debit card in a gas station, but it's like us people, experts, we know, but you cannot expect from people generally around the world, just civilians, to know, oh, I cannot use debit card because they can scan it and well, this whole process, it just, this expectation of civilians that not in the industry to know all these rules is just, you know, beyond what we really should require from civilians. And therefore, it's really easier kind of to businesses, and especially, in the banking industry here in the US and also in Europe, to kind of put this responsibility on people. And I think that it's not right because the banking has a great tech stack, and maybe some don't actually, but they definitely have the money to purchase those, and also the ability with engineering to develop those. And if they're lacking skills and training and experts to decide on the right strategy, go and find those people, which they might not necessarily doing that because they're really in a place that they need to abide to some regulations, but this is kind of like a gray area that never legally put them in a spot and saying, hey, you have to do this. You're not doing this right. I'm sorry. It was maybe a kind of a long
No,
answer.
it is great. I mean, you describe all the pain points, and I agree with you. That's the expectation from like bank industry or from any industry, generally speaking, that people who are using the product, doesn't matter what the product, it's over expectation. And as you mentioned, don't use these great cards in the gas station. It's easy to say, but let's say if I don't have any other cards, I mean, what am I supposed to say? Oh, sorry, it's no gas today. I leave my car here. I'm gonna walk back to my home. It might take me for a while, but sorry, it's only one option for me because someone mentioned it's not using my debit card. But no one mentioned that if you're using and it looks suspicious, maybe it's worth just like replace card and just block this one, open new one. No one
Yeah,
mentioned this step. Everyone say be protective, never using anything, never sign in for anything. I understand your point.
exactly. Yeah, and just to this point, an example that happened to me when I just moved to the US. Again, I'm new to the US idea of the difference in this insurance part between debit card and credit cards. I was really new here, and I took a road trip from New York to Florida. You understand which card I use in the gas station on the way. And then after about over a month that I got back to New York, at 5 a.m., I get all those notifications on my app, on my banking app. And well, since I work in the industry, obviously I have notifications for all of that. I hope people would kind of learn to do that as well, to kind of follow up on that. And I see all this like transfers on Cash App and Venmo, and even bought like a line, a wireless line in Florida. You kind of think this is nice that I have those notifications, but it's kind of crazy that the app didn't even allow me to stop those transactions and report them as fraud at the moment that I saw them. And also, the app didn't allow me to even block my card at that point. And it was 5 a.m. Like, I actually needed to wait till 4 a.m. in the morning for my banker to be available in the office and call him, and then he tells me I need to call the customer service, and then I call the customer service, and then I need to persuade them and explain to them that there is fraud happening in my card that they did not catch, and then they need to move it to another team. Obviously the fraud team not going to be the customer service, which that's what I would expect. But this is something that in the bank in Israel, we would see this in minutes. And also, we don't like, definitely not from a customer that would call us. We catch this ourselves before the customer even see that in seconds. Here it was after a few hours that I call them, and they still like don't really see that. And how can you not identify cash App transfers where I never used cash App before, and also like with that card definitely that didn't use Venmo? How does it not pop up in your fraud management tools, like something really lacking in your system? This is insane, right? So that was just another example of this accountability that really lacking at banking in the industry. You have the data, you have the tools. You cannot expect civilians. Also, like here, it was a civilian that is also an expert in the field that even know what to do, but you didn't even give me any capabilities even to stop the fraud that is happening when I caught it and you don't, right? So it just another example that really should kind of wake up the industry and, hey guys, banking should be more accountable to what they do and don't do.
Yeah, my expectation you change this bank right after this case.
Fully.
Yeah, and so industry change actually in the general for the past couple of years, and how you see
Yeah.
like how you see it change. Do you see any vector where it's going? Maybe some you see what happens with industry in a couple of years. What's your expectation? And yeah, it's actually a question.
Yeah, that's a great question. We always want to talk about trends. Well, we always want to know like kind of what we expect, what we see right now, because we kind of want to be aligned with the strategy that we're going to build going forward, right? something since I moved over here almost 5 years ago. Really, something that I don't see enough of improvement is definitely the awareness of social engineering and its influence on fraud. This would be one vector. Another is that still not really changing, and then I will go to the new stuff. I think I see a place that can really really use an improvement is relevant skills and training to people that that do investigations to people that work in fraud, to people that build those strategies. And I'll give you an example. Funny, where it's kind of like a parable of the shoemaker that walks without shoes. I don't know if it's only like from the Hebrew one, but anyway, the point is, as us working in fraud, and I have actually so many events that happened, fraudulent events that happened to me while I was here in the US. And one of them is, the whole thing with the bank thing, with the identity theft. With the relevant skills, I had actually something with health insurance, not well, with healthcare provider. I came to a healthcare provider. I filled in, my insurance forms, and then you also need to pay copay, which seemed to me a little odd before I even saw the doctor. Like, I mean, I think it makes sense that you would pay after you saw the doctor, but then I heard there are people that, it does happen. I was like, okay, you pay in a regular, normal way that you use a card, right? A payment card on an electronic machine with the desk with, the lady that was sitting there. And then after I filled in all the information, they give me another paper and asked me to fill in my payment card information on a paper. And and I'm looking at it, I'm saying, I don't understand. I just paid copay, so I know you have electronic machine. Even if you didn't, I'm not gonna write it on a paper. But the point was even like, more ridiculous because I already paid for the copay and it was like a normal procedure. I mean, they said something ridiculous with it's for only for the doctor if insurance not going to cover. I don't know, something, completely ridiculous, which I know that my insurance is going to cover. Like they're my insurance is not questionable or anything like that. And even if not, you just get a bill after that, which also a whole different issue here in America. The idea that you can just get a bill to your home about stuff that you didn't know about this before or approved it. But that's a whole different problem. So I tell them, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to write my payment information on a piece of paper. This is literally how identity theft happened. And explain to them, I work in this space. I work in fraud prevention. I tell people not to do that. Obviously, I am not going to do that. And they actually denied me service because I did not write my payment information on there. So you can imagine that every other person that goes to this healthcare provider writes their information because they're also not aware that it's not okay. It's like people that still write, paper checks and not aware of the risks that involved in it. And I thought, how crazy is that? Not only that the whole situation already seemed too fraudulent. Obviously, they denied me. I didn't came for what I came for the visit at all. And then I learned that they still filed a claim to my insurance to get paid for this visit, which was completely insane. And I contacted the health insurance, with all the information. I also insisted when I was with the healthcare provider to receive refund for my pay because the visit didn't actually happen. So, which I received the refund. But then they did file the claim and they also sent me a bill for the copay. You refunded me because you didn't give me the service. And so I gave all this information to the health insurance. And here comes the part that I referred to, the training and skills. I wrote very clearly what was the issue, and I wanted them to know that they're doing business with a fraudulent healthcare provider, right? Um, their reply was so banal, and had nothing to do with actually the claim that I'm bringing to them. And the reply was, we stand by our decision with what we pay to this healthcare provider, and you should pay your part. And I'm like, this is not what I'm saying. I did not ask you to pay for my part. I just saying you that you shouldn't have, wasted money on a fraudulent thing. And this is, so important in this part, that you have an investigator that reads a claim and is so biased and prejudiced that completely ignores the content of the claim and what the claim is.
It's probably actually the lead to the point that a lot of new companies have like recently opened, let's say for the last couple of years, even doesn't matter, it's bank industry, we see a lot of great examples when it's like new solution arrive in a place, and the companies really care about what people who using this service give to them, and they really like reply with maybe it's kind of like they're using the same draft of the message, but at the end they change something in their process, rather than when you work with the long companies who like thousands of years, I don't know, hundreds of years on the market. And your example is great. You send it over to inform them that something went wrong. You might need to consider how you continue work with this company. But at the end, I believe how it works. They just like see the message, they just like maybe don't want to investigate it, and they send over the replies they already have in place, because
Exactly.
someone's supposed to be prepare a different reply. If I reply this, we're going to investigate, I need to follow up, so it's a lot of the work, I'm not paying for this work, and this is
Yeah.
end up in the same way. But at the end, who won? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm still in this battle.
Yeah, I know it's really crazy, and it's specifically like, it's every time remind me when people who using approaches for sales, they not even sometimes check your name and send it over all these messages, and you get these amazing messages. They're not related to fraud, but okay, if you want to really speak with someone, at least please describe my name properly.
So true. It's better to just, leave it at hello without approaching to the specific name or customers.
For sure.
Yeah, but there's like this additional, going back to my example with the card, and the fraudulent charges that were there. So there was also, I contacted the bank to let them know about this. I was finally reimbursed for this charges, but it took them 2 months to reimburse me, which is ridiculous. When I was working in, the fraud prevention of the biggest bank in Israel, Bank Leumi, and like this type of thing solved in matter of minutes. You know, Definitely not months. We don't have time to keep such obvious stuff open for so long. And the thing is that the additional steps that I took was also to contact Cash App and contact Venmo and let them know, hey, by the way, this account was not opened by me. You should know about this, because whoever is doing that also doing, probably also doing identity theft with credentials of other people, right? And their reply was kind of the same how I just shared with you with the health insurance. Their reply was, "Well, you need to contact your bank, or the one the owning the card payment." And I was like, "That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you need to use the biometrics and device fingerprint that you have in your fraud prevention tech stack, so you can catch all the other fraudulent transactions and cancel them, so you would actually not cause bad experience for people that not even your users, or people that are your users but use like other cards." It just, this lack of accountability of companies. Come on, let's help people live better and be happy, and not handle all these fraudulent things that simple civilians just cannot do themselves, because they just simply don't have access to all these fraud prevention tools that companies have.
Yeah, I can't be agree more with you, because every time when someone say if you're not using this one, I try to use this approach several times. When you need to send information to our customer service, so you send everything and reply you getting, yeah, we got your information, thank you, and in the next 5 working day we gonna reply you. In the 5 working days, someone say you, we thank you, we complete your case, and you don't know if it's what's the outcome. So it's the reason why most of the time you, say sorry, it happens, I just need to find a way and try to find someone in LinkedIn and send message directly. It's better working rather than normal process, which in sometimes I believe they're
Yeah.
not going like actually aim somewhere. They just like they in place, but no one really care what happens and why they're in place. They don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, this area really painful because there is you and me that we also work in the industry and we're relatively young, and we have this energy to pursue justice and do you know, it's really also you need to kind of balance the being smart and being, you know, just. But we're trying to fix this. And there are other groups that not only just civilians that not in this industry, but also elderly, like the elderly abuse in that sense is really extreme, because when identity theft happens in those cases, and again, I just shared this example with a healthcare provider. Can you imagine how many healthcare provider just you know, put the situation, you have to put your credit card number, and I can imagine elderly people would actually question that and not just write it. And you can imagine how easy and you know, the healthcare provider is just an example of how easy it is to you know, steal your identity and use your credentials. But there are also a lot of other businesses, and the thing is that there are not any regulations or government rules that prevent from businesses to ask you your payment information on a paper, right? If it was not legal, at least you could actually go to the police and say, hey, it's not legal, they asked me that. And something can be done with that. But it is legal. So you cannot really do much about it. And then with elder abuse, it becomes like much like something in it, like really you know, like tears my heart, because they don't even know who to contact. They usually don't have enough of resources and people to talk to. Type of fraud that happening with identity theft that really falls in between the cracks. And this type also happens like in marketplaces, like mainly on eBay. I mean, and other marketplaces probably for sure. It just eBay became really a platform that allows a lot of fraudulent activity on it, and to use stolen identity. And this type of fraud that happens is the bad seller, that for the marketplace he can be like a good seller. He sells some legitimate with great companies products like Apple or Nespresso or things like that. Nespresso is just an example that was actually brought on the DEF CON. Specific example, Nina something, I forgot the name, but she was awesome. If you hear this, you're awesome, but I'm sorry, I don't remember her last name, and I hope also the first name was right.
If you
That's
found
the example.
this article, you can send me over, and I will add it to the description of this episode, so people might
So
able to
yeah.
read it.
Oh, yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'll do a search after that, because it's only on YouTube, and it just, you know, Nespresso scam DefCon, something like that. I will search it after. So it's really simple. What happens is this bad seller is just for the marketplace is good. He's putting this Nespresso machine for or you know, iPhone for a very low price, and then you have a legitimate buyer that uses his legitimate, you know, valid card payment on the eBay platform, or you know, other marketplace. But in that situation, you know, eBay really is the place that a lot of this happening. They put, you know, their address of the legitimate buyer, but the seller actually uses a stolen credential, a stolen payment card details, to buy from Apple that iPhone, and just in the shipping address, he puts the address of the buyer that was on eBay, right? So what happens is that the buyer on eBay gets his iPhone in like 50% discount. So he's happy. He paid with his card. He didn't do anything false. The false thing also technically did not happen on eBay, right? Okay, we'll talk about that after what eBay can do. But the bad seller is also for eBay. He's a good seller, right? He's also didn't do anything bad. He sold something, the buyer got it, and the buyer is happy about it. But what happened behind the screen is that the idea that eBay allowed this type of business to happen was because they completely ignoring and not taking accountability that selling iPhone for 50% is just something that obviously gonna come on the cost of something else. And what is happening is really that you have all those people that their stolen credit card or other card payment types that are being stolen and used to buy from the legitimate, Apple. And Apple also don't know that anything. No, actually, in that sense, Apple do know that something bad happened because it was bought with stolen identity. So it's kind of like you have this triangle that technically only on Apple happened the fraud, the payment fraud, but eBay also should be accountable. And what they should do is being more aware of this extreme changes in price that something should cost and how much it's being sold for, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, supposed to be an ideal world.
Deal word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm really curious right now is to hear about your actual journey. First of all, why you decide fraud prevention path and how you joined this fraud prevention path. What's motivate you and what's actually still motivated to still be there?
Yeah, thank you. It's fun to kind of sometimes in all this chaos, remembering why we're doing something, because it can be, well, really exhausting in times and sometimes frustrating when you see that things not working well at all and they're completely out of your control and you really want to help and do them. Well, actually, you want to help and do them is kind of like what keeps you motivated. I think that since I was a kid, I always had this really strong justice affinity. Although that when I was a child, I thought I'm going to be a lawyer protecting, all the people that being prosecuted for false stuff. So not that far from there.
Yeah, the same path at least. Yeah, I mean, the end goal is pretty close. So,
Yeah. I mean, either prosecuted or those that actually, bad things happen to them, and then you want to protect them and prosecute the bad people so they would not be able to continue doing their bad activities to the good people. And I'm really simplifying it with like good and bad when obviously there like some stuff that can be subjective, but there are some ethical and moral values that they're not subjective. They're pretty clear. If you deceive people or if you kill people or, I'm not going to continue with the list, but they are pretty clear about moral values. And then I had in my time when I was a teenager, I remember when I was at some point visiting my grandma. And every time that I would visit her, and I was 18, I was a soldier back then. Every time I was visiting her, she had like she had bought like something ridiculous, like a box full of hand cream, like 100 units of it. I mean, you can imagine what it was. It was, a marketer that comes over to the door and sell her this, which obviously a fraudulent business because it's obvious that a grandma does not need 100 units of hand cream, some questionable, company name or something. And every time something weird like that happen, and it doesn't matter like how much you say your grandma, hey, don't open your door, don't buy those stuff. Like, why do you even need that? And she's like, well, I don't know. I thought I'm going to give it to you and you're going to, this very basic social engineering that those bad actors just use on elderly people and other civilians that just don't really have critical thinking. And I mean, and kind of just choose to not be skeptic at all. I do think that you need to give benefit of the doubt to people, right? People that didn't do anything bad to you don't deserve bad treatment just because there are a lot of other people with bad intentions. I would recommend people be more on the trust but verify side, right? And you can't really blame elderly people when you have someone that uses really great social engineering skills on them and tell them how they're gonna gift all of that to their beloved ones. And it just becomes a situation that I could not do much about this when I'm not there physically, but I really wanted to help in the fight against those stuff that just abuse the kindness of just civilians overall. Honestly, when I technically got into fraud prevention, it was accidentally because I didn't really know that this role exists.
You're not first one.
Right?
Yeah, it's quite popular answer, to be honest.
Right.
It's not a lot of people
I
actually
mean,
decide to join fraud prevention because of their grandma bought a lot of hand cream, but definitely accidentally for sure.
yeah. I mean, if you think about it, us as kids, when adults or parents ask us, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" So kids only know those roles that are just being famous and like, "Oh, I want to be a doctor because we go to a doctor." "Oh, I want to be a lawyer because everybody hears about lawyers and what they do." Or they want to be a veterinarian because you have a pet and you go to the veterinarian, which helps your pet to be healthy and better. So you kind of see in it something that is good. Who knows about the fraud prevention people? There are a lot of other roles that people just don't know about. And also, I'm sure there's so many roles I don't know, right? And you probably don't know about.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. I believe that's a reason. What I'm so far understand that you're really patient to share some your knowledge and expertise with the people, and if you see something, I don't want to sound from the British underground, if something doesn't look right, see it, say it, sort it. What I actually mean here, that your passion not ended in a place where you work, you also end up in the places where you facing with the problem. As you share your first two examples, you not just say, yeah, that happens, and leave away. You just like try to share this knowledge with the company to and expect them to learn something and adapt it, and no one else going to be apply for the same kind of situation in the future. and it,
Absolutely.
and it's the same reason why you created this Udemy course.
Yes.
And can you share a bit about it? What it is about? Who might find it very useful to watch it?
Yes, absolutely. So that Udemy course based on the first presentation that I did in the Merchant Risk Council in Vegas, and I think it was 2021. I think, or 2020. No, 2021. It doesn't matter. Never mind. Anyway, as we discussed earlier, there is big gap that is being missed in the industry, and it's the social engineering and the relevant skills like critical thinking, curiosity, the will to really investigate what is happening, being open-minded, in all those fun stuff, but undervalued. And I really kind of wanted to put it then after getting really good feedback on the presentation. I thought it would be great to also edit in a virtual manner for people to also be able to see that and learn from it going forward. And it is a short course, right? Like, I didn't want to get into fraud types and fraud cases. I really wanted to emphasize the implications of social engineering that happening and why, the cohesiveness between the fraud prevention and the cybersecurity professionals in different companies is so unique and so important for the security of the company and for the security interests of the customers. Because they take like different type of roles in the same combat. And if we're lacking one of them, we're just not really covering it all. And the social engineering, I really wanted to present how it's happening, why it's happening, and like how those bad actors can really manipulate people, based on those emotions, which is extremely important. And then I also talk there on critical thinking and biases. I raised a few biases that extremely important because I've seen that happening a lot. Also, halo effect, when you would just give somebody you don't even know, you just meet that person, and something about the person seems really familiar to somebody you already know from your past or in your present, right? And halo effect is like actually you giving positive attributes to somebody that didn't do yet anything to deserve them. Like, for example, you just met a person. He, I don't know, the way his face, his nose really resembles to your dad, and he talks very similar the way your dad talks, and you love your dad, right? So you already have this really warm approach towards the person, and the person can be like a completely bad, evil, I don't know, serial killer. But you already, like, in your mind, created some kind of a bias about him, which is actually a positive one. But he didn't do anything to deserve this positive kind of view on him, right? This is specifically like halo effect, and this is important when you have investigations. I'll go back to banking, because it's just an example of something in person, but we can also take it to like e-commerce when it's like just somebody that talking on the phone. But going to the banking, somebody that can come to the teller, and this lady can be like an old lady, super sweet and smiling and really nice. And basically, kind of the teller would already have this affinity to want to see something good in her. So she can miss a lot of signs that this old lady is there, actually came with a stolen identity, with a fake ID, and gonna draw money that belongs to somebody else's account based on those things. And this is why critical thinking is so important. And just with the examples I already brought, that we talked, all those examples lacking, the skills and training of people that should do something about it, right? This course really gives, in a very consumed, short time, a very important and paramount baseline for fraud prevention. And I also talk a little bit about AI, artificial intelligence, over there, because we live now in a period that every time that people say AI, it's kind of like a magic buzzword that, oh my God, this is AI, so it probably knows everything and I don't need to do anything about that. And it's kind of like a problem because, it's important to kind of realize that with AI and Gen AI, if you don't know to ask the right questions and create the correct modeling, it's not actually going to solve your problems or catch the fraud that you don't know how to catch. Because if you don't know to ask the right question, the computer also don't know to answer the right questions, and the computer, the code. But I'm kind of really simplifying things, in our conversation. And as you know, at first when you talk about the abbreviations, a lot of people talk with many abbreviations, and I kind of really want to simplify those words into actual events that are happening to really different roles in companies understand the significance of it, right? So I also added this part to the Udemy course, kind of just, hey guys, when you review products and somebody tells you AI, just make sure you understand what they're actually giving you. They're not just selling you something and then you implement this and then realize, oh, I kind of thought they do this and this and this, but they don't, which happens many times. And it's kind of important to bring that up, that critical thinking also here is important. Asking the right questions, understanding what is happening and what is needed to be done, right? So yeah, that's kind of like on the Udemy part. I have actually another venture in this realm, kind of helping, around of helping people. and that connects to those examples that happened to me. And just as you said, a lot of times something will happen to people and they would be like, oh, okay, whatever, or I don't have this energy to deal with that, I'm just going to pay that, or they don't even know what they can do about that. There is the one thing that if more businesses will be more accountable to their role in it, would, make our lives better. But we cannot change all of them, right? Even if we work in one place or, consult advice to a few places, we cannot change all the businesses. We need to think what we can do about it, right? So something that I started building on lately is I gathered a few professionals in the fraud world to maybe kind of build an alliance. But the idea here is to have this two aspects of help. And one aspect is really to civilians just in the world. Obviously, at first, it would be more on the areas where the experts in this group, have more experience and outreach to all stakeholders that can help. But the idea here is all those situations that is not fraud that happens directly toward the business, right? Because then the business is taken care of. But all this fraud that happens towards civilians and then businesses don't really take accountability on this, like with those examples. And what like I really want to create is a place where just civilians can contact and present like evidence of issues that happen to them, and we would try and help them fight it or provide them information if they really need to do that or not, or if they need to worry about that. Because all this thing with filing or sending you debt or bill for something you didn't even do, it's just so scary. And if you don't pay it, even if you know you didn't do that, like it can be sent to credit issuers, no, to debt collectors, sorry. And then it can also hurt your credit score, and it can, hurt you in a lot of other areas in life, and kind of, hurt your career and business and your life for something you didn't even do. So I really want to create this space, and also on the side of professionals in our industry, I want to create that would be very, very meticulously filtered with people that really in the industry, that want to ask for guidance and help, and only experts that really like vetted by us would be allowed to reply there. So no like vendor selling and stuff like that, and no open forum that everybody can get access to the answers that are being provided there. So no like marketing and salespeople, like really those that touch the points of the risk and fraud and trust and safety areas, and control those, and governance, and and healthcare fraud, and those stuff.
Yeah, really looking forward to announce this new service or company. I'm really looking forward. I believe it's something that's supposed to be in place already. For me, it sounds like more companies that helps people who, something happens with the flight. It was delayed, and the companies always say we're not going to return your money, and this company is gonna help you to provide the right amount of information to claim these charges.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, we looking forward for announcement, and I hope everything going as you plan it.
Thank you so much. And yeah, with those examples with the flight, for example, there is this lawyer that has this Instagram. I think her name is Angela. That she shares all those stuff that you should know, that can help you with that kind of information. Which also reminds me, the type of the thing with like this alliance, stakeholders that can also be really interesting, that might help and to collaborate with people like Erin West. I actually haven't spoken with her yet. We're connected on LinkedIn, but she's also definitely another person that I saw has this real passion towards helping people with, I think I saw it mainly with like pig butchering and crypto, but it's, one area of how identity theft and how people are just simple civilians being abused and not necessarily on specific platform.
I know from your LinkedIn probably. So that you have some experience, not some, you have a great experience work as a like consulting, like consultant. Just quite curious, what is necessary to be consultant? What the skills are requirement? Maybe you can give a couple of recommendations for people who curious to be in this career path.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I mainly worked for corporates, right? Being on my own is pretty scary. I'm still learning around. Like, I definitely cannot say, oh, I know what you need to do, and I'm going to tell you. I joined the payments consulting network and the merchant advisory as, part of a network of great consultants with like 20 years of experience in fields. They're mainly in payments. I think we're only like a couple of fraud risk consultants and advisors, and PCN is just, they're originated in Australia, and now they want to expand to North America and Europe. I mean, they already have some in Europe and UK as well, and North America is relatively new in that sense. So the reason I'm sharing this is because the managing director Mangala, he's very knowledgeable in the consulting space, and how to kind of operate around it, and he's really very helpful to me to kind of navigate me around this, because it is challenging when you just go on your own. What do you do? Like, it's great. You need leads, you need to talk with companies, you need what is really the best way to communicate, to build those relationships, to present your value, and also at the same time not really sharing strategies that those companies actually need to pay for, right? I did actually have I had some company that I had a few meetings with them, which, I built a complete strategy for them, internal threat and internal fraud, and it was just, I honestly felt used afterwards. Because you just, you spend so much time on it and you want to show value, but then afterwards, they ask more and more questions that you kind of worked in corporate, so you don't really know what you need to kind of, how you need to present things that show the value of what you know and how you can help the company, but not necessarily already give the whole strategy that they should have technically paid for, right? And Mangala is really, really helping navigating through this. How as a consultant is different to do that and build your business through this journey. And it also kind of involves this like writing articles and doing Q&As, and involvement with conferences, because it's really like a great expansion of communication with people. And basically, first of all, we build connections, right, before we just sell our services.
It's a great explaining. This is not, for some people who imagine the work of advisor as you sitting on a chair, people come to you asking, what do you believe is the best approach? And you simply reply without any context there. So it's not like that. You need a lot of homework to do. You need as you mentioned, a lot
Yeah,
of communication, and you need to approach a lot of the conferences and speak with the people around to understand. It's not
yeah.
as simple as this might sound.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you summarized it very, very well. Yeah, you did that. There are people that I can see they're so good in presenting those ideas of things without actually giving anything, and I'm like, oh wow, that, like, how did you do that? You spoke really well without actually giving any actionable steps to the person in front of you. That was awesome. I need to learn how to do that.
Yeah, it's a great skill. I also would love to learn
Yeah.
the same. So I probably have last one. Yeah, last questions. Not actually questions. So can you give a bit of like last piece of advices for people who right now are considering the fraud prevention as an area to join, or for people who in this area for a long time and right now don't have any motivation to continue? Any piece of advices for them?
That's a tricky one. That's a good question because I can really understand when you come to a point that you don't want to continue, and it's and for some people it might be like really a good kind of cue to change path, because some people do that. Personally, I would recommend to kind of think of why you were doing that. Because if you were doing it just as a job, because you just somehow got into this path and you were just doing it, working on this fraud or risk, but it's not something that kind of sparking you, you wait for the day to end and just go home. Like it's probably something that now would be a great loss if you change path for you, just because I kind of live in a way that I want to be happy, right? I want to work in something that I have passion for. I feel that what I do is contributing for the world to be better, because we cannot change the world, but we can change what we do. We can maybe change mind by mind, not all minds at one time. And sometimes it can be very challenging to see those improvements when those are very little, and when we're just right in front of them we don't see that, right? Just like if you're an uncle and you're coming to visit your brother that has a few kids, and you see them that when they're very little, I don't know, baby just born, and then you haven't seen him for a year and you come to visit, so you see in a year like that kid looks like it's not a baby anymore, right? He grew up so fast for you, like you think that because you didn't see him for a year. But on the other hand, for the parents to see the baby every day, it's much harder to see these little changes every day, even though the baby is growing to a kid. And it's the same goes with everything in life. Every process that we're going through, when we're looking at it, even if we had some change, we don't really see that. So sometimes the part that can give you this lack of enthusiasm of something is really just because you think that nothing is changes, or you don't have enough to contribute. So you kind of, it's important to kind of put this perspective of, wait, where it was before, where it is now, it actually did change a lot of what has happened. Or also put the kind of perspective of how you look at things. It's really whether you want to change your path or not. Have perspective and why you want to do that, right? Because if it's something you still believe in but you just feel kind of lost, and so finding this spark again is just maybe kind of explore other ways that you can do the contribution. It's not just one way that we can do that, right? Basically, that's. I'm sorry, it was a little long, so I just need to stop.
No, no, it's a great. I'm happy to hear this a bit maybe longer story rather than like short answer. Say, yeah, you can't change anything, so yeah, screw you, sitting in your position. No,
Yeah, that's
when
true.
you provide example with parallel with the babies, is a great example that you need to understand what it changes for you. So how you consider changes and what's the happiness for you as well. And it means a lot for people who right now in stuck. And I believe it's not only our career path; it's everywhere happens when people sitting and just really don't know what they're doing and why they're doing this one. But what I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for joining me today. Your story is incredible, and I hope it's nothing happens again with the banks. I hope you find the right one and then stick with this bank, because
Thank you.
I don't want. I may care about banks because for them it's like to get so much information from you. It's maybe hard one, hard point.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to do that. I would love to also hear your story. We need to do another one when I'm asking you the questions.
For sure, anytime. Invite me anytime. I'm more than happy to answer all my questions. Because I don't have this much kind of interesting stories. I have a couple of them, but I'm not sure how the people like them.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah. I'm actually wanna say my favorite words at the end of each podcast. That I usually say, and this word is cut.